All right, so Grub recommended a film for us to talk about.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Indeed.
Bound. It's about the fuck are their names? Quirky and something. I don't know how the fuck you put it in words because it goes. It's hard to,
Violet. It's Violet.
I don't know how to put it in
Cork
words.
and
Though,
Corky and Violet.
it goes in so many places because it starts off just like a romance and then turns to like this kind of like heist mob film.
It's lesbians take on the mafia.
Exactly.
For real.
That's
It's
the
It's
movie.
Sexy Beast, but with lesbians.
Yeah,
That's actually a pretty good way to describe it.
it's a blast.
All right, since you're the first one, did you want to talk about it a little bit more, or is that it?
Just hear y'all thoughts.
All right.
Just go off of that.
Jacob.
Yeah, I had an absolute blast with this movie. I mean, it is so cheesy, so cheesy. Like especially in the first 30 minutes, but after rewatching it, I was kind of like, I kind of knew it was that cheesy, so I was like, it didn't bother me as much, and I even loved it more on a rewatch because I knew it was that cheesy. And I mean, one of the most intense films too. I didn't expect that. Performances are, a little cheesy, but I don't know. I just had a blast with it. I don't really care if it was cheesy. It was just great. I don't know, fun. Don't care, have fun
Nice.
challenge, basically.
Very true.
Jack.
I agree with Jacob saying that it's like really cheesy. That kind of like I do want to rewatch it because I will say around like the halfway point or like a little bit less than an hour in, I really got like interested in it. But like before that,
True.
I wasn't really liking it like at all.
Mhm.
But I think like what Jacob said, like going into it knowing that it's gonna be like really cheesy, is like I think I'll like it more. But yeah.
Yeah,
It's kind of a wild ride for like the second half.
it is.
All right. Seth.
I think it was really fucking good. I thought it was super intense, and I wasn't expecting it. Like that scene when like the whole thing with the walls is so fucking
Yes, bro.
so it, like, and then like when the phone rings, that was so incredible. And I don't really understand the cheesy aspect. I mean, it was a bit cheesy, but it wasn't.
Yeah, I don't
Nothing
think it's like overbearing.
take. It's nothing to take. No, yeah, it's nothing to take note of. It's like I don't know. It's just, and I think the Wachowski did a great job of not male gazing the main two characters.
Exactly.
And like, yeah, and it's like I think it was just fucking amazing, and like, it's probably their best movie. I don't know. I've seen The Matrix like a while ago.
It's their best movie.
But, like,
Yeah.
maybe.
I mean, the thing
Debatable.
about like that really got me was like at the beginning, like Caesar, how he just like pronounced shit, just like threw me off. Like he was like,
Yeah.
I forgot what he said. He said like another, and he said nutter, and it was so like it threw me off.
Yeah.
And I was reading like the IMDb, and apparently like the Wachowskis like told the dude to like act like Humphrey Bogart from
Yeah.
Sierra Madre. And I was just like, there's no fucking
Yeah.
way, bro. There's no fucking way.
You can tell a little bit.
I don't know. Him specifically just like threw me off like
Yeah.
so much.
No, I thought he was great. I thought he was great. I thought he was man. He's like the
I-
goofy main guy. And
I
thought
personally
a
believe
fucking
he
great
was the
villain.
best one in the movie. He was the best character in the movie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
Makes sense. But yeah, I thought it was really good, and like I don't know, it
I think
was
everyone
masterful.
Great job.
Masterful tension builder. All right, go ahead.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, I thought it was good as well. I don't love it as much as you guys do, but
Cringe.
it's a good movie. It does take a while to get going for me personally. I do think there's some imbalance with the tones and like how the story shifts from one thing to another, but it's still pretty competent, you know. It's well shot. It has its own style, even though it's not like in your face too much. It's like the right amount. And I do think the characters needed a little bit more weight for me, because in the end, I just really didn't feel that victory, their accomplishment. But it's still fun to watch. You know, there was some great little gags and great little like cheesy lines that I enjoyed, but there were some other lines that I didn't really appreciate. It was really like a weird balance between things, and I don't know, it kind of caught me off guard, but I do appreciate the noir tone it's going for. And sometimes it does lean into those tropes a little bit too heavily, to where it's like everything is super familiar. when there's tension in some scenes, I think it works well. But yeah, it did take a while for me to get used to it. It's good. Xander.
And I do believe that this is a pretty great film on its own merits. I do think that there are parts about it that are definitely flawed. And I honestly want to take a moment to say that I personally disagree on the whole, like, there isn't a lot of cheesiness. I think it's incredibly fucking cheesy. And that mainly comes from the use of the music during the tense moments. There are moments where the music is just fucking blaring, and I'm just kind of like, man, I was kind of taken out of it. It just felt a little too like it was shoving itself down my throat. It felt a little too much for me. And what sucks about that is because it's clear that they understood when to use the music, because there are moments where it's just kind of like where it's kind of jazzy and the music is kind of just like grooving a little bit during like some conversations, and that stuff actually works really well. It gives the actors a bit of it kind of gives the conversation a bit more flow. So when I watch the more tense scenes and then there's like someone gets shot and there's like a like in the music, it just completely broke the tension because it was like it just felt a little too like it was taking itself a little too seriously. And I was talking to you guys as I was watching it, and I can understand why it's like why you guys are saying, well, it's very self-aware. And you know what? There are parts where it is. No doubt. I 100% agree with that. But I do think that there are parts where the execution of it being self-aware does not come out clear. Because there are genuine moments where I'm like, is this really not taking itself seriously? Because this looks like it's taking itself really seriously. And I don't want to get into spoilers just yet because I'm just sharing my basic thoughts. But there are certain scenes that are pretty fucking important that kind of had the tension ripped away, all because it just felt like it was taking itself too seriously.
Really?
Aside from that, yeah,
Wait,
honestly,
I
it's
never
just,
thought there was scenes that the tension like disappeared.
Exactly.
Which scenes?
not like disappeared completely, but it just felt nerfed. It felt less impactful.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
scene though?
And I don't want to talk about it because there's spoilers, and I want to wait until we're like I want to wait until we all like get our basic thoughts out, and then I'll talk about it. But
All right.
aside from my gripes here and there are also some weird like computer generated moments in the shots where they're trying to get some cool movements, which is cool. I like that. And also there are like some editing noises, post production editing noises or whatever, like the telephone moment that's a little weird, a little cheesy. They got kind of annoying at points. But aside from that, I do think the movie is still pretty great. The story is incredibly entertaining. The characters are fun to watch. The acting, for the most part, is pretty great. Joe Pantoliano probably did the best job out of everybody. He was clearly just so fucking into his role, and he clearly cared so much about his character, and he just wanted to. He clearly was just having a ton of fun on set, and his character really helped me understand the self-aware aspect, because if you wanted this story if you wanted to take this story seriously, you wouldn't have this screaming Italian man mispronounce, like Jack said, mispronounce the word another. Like, you wouldn't have this crazy fucking Italian guy screaming all the time. You would have a more subdued character, like from someone from like The Godfather, or someone from like Goodfellas, when they're not trying to kill people. Like, you would have a more capable actor at the helm. But I think putting Joe Pantoliano, who's already kind of known as being like the screaming Italian, that really helped. And I think that really went a long way in helping myself put myself in your guys' shoes about it's clearly so self-aware. And yes, I do agree that there are points where it is. I just also am aware that there are points where it doesn't feel so self-aware. Either way, it's a pretty great film, and I would easily watch it again.
You should, because I think it's better on
Yeah.
rewatch, honestly.
I'm inclined to agree with you. I really hope that it is, because I always like movies to get better on a rewatch. I haven't been able to get it out of my head since I watched it.
Same. That's why I rewatched it last night or this morning.
Yeah. Go ahead, Vinny.
All good.
Vinny.
Okay. So yeah, I really liked it. I think it's pretty great. I think it's especially great, especially for a first feature. I think it's really well made. But I don't want to like consistently draw comparisons to stuff, but I still think that the Wachowski sisters' sophomore debut, The Matrix, has a lot of interesting stuff in terms of the themes connected with this movie, but just with a better story and characters, basically, and just with a more consistent tone, I'd say. With like, where it comes to my biggest gripe with this film is like the tone, and I think that's what is the biggest crutch of it. Where even though I think it's really cool that we like the movie starts off as like a neo noir film, and then it transitions into a mob movie, and then it transitions into a heist movie, and it's like all of these different things. I think that's cool, but it kind of felt like flipping a switch for me. And I do kind of agree with Xander's sentiment that the cheesiness, it gets overbearing in some scenes, but I don't think cheesiness on its own is not a bad thing, but I think cheesiness, it needs to complement the tone of the sequence. And I think cheesiness during a scene that's like very clearly over the top versus cheesiness during a scene that is probably meant to be taken seriously, I think
I
it
agree.
conflicts too much.
I
think
agree,
that's
and,
like,
and that's
yeah.
that was my point. There was one scene in particular where the cheesiness was conflicting with how I was supposed to take the scene, and it's clear the scene was supposed to be taken seriously, but the cheesiness got in the way of that, so that really distracted me. Sorry to interrupt. I just want to get that out.
I think I know exactly what scene you're talking about.
Yeah,
I think we're both thinking about the same scene, but like, anyways, with but apart from that, I think it's a really like solid, well put together story in terms of like how the themes are. I just wish it was executed better. Like, I love the ideas of it, like all the themes revolving like gender roles, masculinity and femininity, escapism, like, and the fact that it literally like starts with the main character who is a lesbian inside the closet, like, but
bound,
and also just
literally.
Bound. I want to fuck you hard on the sink. I'm sorry.
Jesus
Bruh.
I apologize.
Very true.
Oh man.
Yes,
Yeah.
Kanye moment. I'm sorry, but if there were any way that I could wrap it up, I don't know. It's just you can see the seeds being planted for the Matrix, and that I just think works better in terms of like how the world is and how the characters are and just how the story is put together, but with similar themes and filmmaking techniques. So that's why I think I still prefer the Matrix.
I don't know if I prefer the Matrix to this. I think they're just too different to compare that simply. Yeah, I agree. There are clearly aspects in this film that are being explored that were explored in The Matrix too. But I think that the environment and the tone and all that, like, they're too different for me to even think about comparing them in any way. I even though I like both movies, I'm just kind of like, well, I mean, they're just a bit too separate. But I know it's hard not to do that because they're from the same directors and they're from the same like mindset, I guess. Like, I get that. I get why you're comparing it.
They both sort of have that style, though, of just sort of, well, it's still taking itself seriously, but also trying to be cheesy and fun at the same time. There's two tones happening at the same time. Both kind of do that.
Yeah, it's more like I in terms of the content, it's not very similar, but in terms of like its ideas and themes, and in terms of its like filmmaking, and like how it's shot, and like you can see like all the seeds being planted for like the shots in the Matrix. Like there's there's a shot where it like goes into the into the telephone, and that shot is like exactly the same in the Matrix. There's like almost an identical shot to that like shot.
I love the shot that. Let's actually take a moment to talk about how fucking awesome the cinematography is in this film.
Oh, it's
this
so
movie
good.
is incredibly well shot, and there are multiple. And also,
True.
I want to say right now that a well-framed shot is not enough. You can't just have a well-framed shot and say, "Oh, that's a great shot." It's how it fits within the story and how it affects the audience. And I think a good example is the shot of the toilet. It's such a basic shot, but the way it transitions into that moment where the blood splatters in the toilet, that moment was so fucking cool. Like, yeah. I know it's a basic transition, and I could honestly do it myself if I really tried. But honestly, it's just so well done in the moment and in the film that I don't really mind. It's just so it's just such a great moment. And there are all a ton of shots like that. There's another shot where it's like zooming out of the gun barrel. That was pretty cool. Like there are clear shots where they had the kind of where they clearly knew what they wanted to do. There clearly weren't shots where they were like, no, just put the camera here. We'll shoot it from here. Who cares? They clearly had an idea of where they wanted to place their camera. And I think the directors who know what they want to do with the camera is what makes the difference between great cinematography and bad cinematography. You can't just go in and just sort of like place your camera and just hope it sticks. I think that one who has a plan is the one who has the better cinematography, kind of thing.
The shot where the cop steps on the rug and then like the blood comes
Oh
out.
my
Blood,
God.
like
Just
the
great shot.
that was pretty.
But
tense.
that kind of detects another flaw in the movie. Like, how did he is blood on his feet walking out of the
Yeah,
apartment?
I feel like he would. I feel like if he was walking on the hard floor, you'd hear a little like squelch because it's
Yeah.
blood.
Yeah, but the
but,
thing is, you'd also
yeah.
see the prints walking out,
Yeah, you
Mhm.
would.
and you'd notice walking throughout the entire fucking apartment complex that you have blood on the bottom of your soul.
To be 100%. Yeah.
I think you could possibly infer that, like, I don't think it's unreasonable to assume that they were probably paid off by the mob to not really give a fuck about hits, like, in this scenario. And that, like, also sort of goes into, like, playing off the cliches of, like, mob stories where it's like the cops don't really give a fuck.
Yeah.
So,
Maybe, but if that's the case, I wish they may have done a bit of a better job communicating that. They don't even need to say it. Like, but I think like maybe like a throwaway line earlier in the film where like the guy's like saying, "Oh yeah, Gino, he owns the cops," or something like that, or like that might have been that might have been like something I would have discovered later. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
need to be explained, but I don't think there's any inference to them being owned by the mob. But in other movies that is the case, so I can see why one would make that a assumption. So it's not a flaw, but it's a little like thing that I noticed that's kind of weird.
It doesn't really bother me though.
Yeah. Actually, I have a question for Grub.
Yeah.
I know that you love the movie the most, and I'm just curious. If you could pick like an issue you have with the film, whether that be a nitpick or like an actual major issue, what would you pick? Because I want to hear you like criticize the film in like your own words. I want to know if you have actually any criticisms against it.
I don't completely disagree with some of the uses of sound effects. Like there are some moments where it feels, especially when it's just the two of them talking, and I think it's every time Corky goes by the screen, it makes this loud ass sound.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Wait, are you calling her quirky?
Corky.
quirky?
I thought she was called quirky the entire movie.
No, it's Corky, like
Corky.
Corky, Corky.
I
It's
didn't even
because
realize.
Jennifer Tilly has like very weird vocal inflections.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I thought she was called Quirky.
does.
I kind of think that's a better name though. I don't know. I don't
She
know.
was kind of distracting at times.
Yeah, she was kind of.
Yeah.
I just kept thinking of Celia from Monsters Inc. Like every time she opened her mouth.
Yeah, not
Honestly,
just
I could
that,
only
but-
see. Honestly, I was like, "Where the fuck? How are you not pregnant, Bonnie from fucking Family Guy?"
Not just that,
Oh
but
my
like,
God,
some of her
yes.
delivery took me
Yeah.
a little bit.
Yeah,
I
there
don't know,
there were more
Yeah.
than a few moments where her voice just was like, it's here's the problem with her voice, and it's not like a problem, but it's something that bugs me. Her voice is like it's a dog whistle. It's like very quiet, yet it's very high pitched. Like I can't even imitate it. I would try and imitate it so people watching would get an example of like what I'm talking about, but I can't. I simply just can't because I can't get that high. But if you listen to her voice, there's genuinely like a pitch, like a high pitched like whine to it. And that's what distracts me because like with it's kind of the same thing. I know I'm saying this is a little weird. It's kind of the same thing in some cases with William Dafoe's S's because they whistle like really high pitched. It's sometimes like a little weird for me. I don't know. It's just my ears.
No, I thought her performance was incredibly seductive, and that's definitely what they were going for. I don't know. I think her tone of
That's
voice.
true.
I think her tone of voice fit the definitely fit the character.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I
she's
agree.
playing the femme fatale.
I agree.
Yeah.
It definitely
I
does
think
fit the
she plays her
character.
character great.
I
in it.
like yeah, she maybe been a little miscast, but I mean I don't think that it's
Nah,
anything.
dude.
I don't agree.
No, I don't know. I think she could have
No,
been
her
cast a little
voice
better.
was like her voice is kind of like it feels like someone's whispering down your ear the whole movie almost. And that is her character. Like she
That's
mentions
true.
and she mentions that she does prostitution or whatever it is,
Yeah,
and it's like
they
and it's
did
yeah
mention
and
that.
yeah and she's and it's like that's what she is. She's a seducer. She
Can I just say though, her performance like really grew on me though. Like as when it started at the beginning of the film, it was kind of like, you know, I agree with what you're saying, Xander, but I kind of felt more of what you're feeling like at the beginning, and then it started to really grow on me, and I started to understand.
No, I probably should have
You know.
mentioned that I did get used to the performance, and it was really only in the first like half hour, I guess, when I was mostly bugged by her performance. But I found that
Same.
it got more and more in place, and I got used to the character as it went along.
Mhm.
It
And that's
just
what I'm
was
saying,
like
though.
at first it was so jarring. At first it was just so jarring that it was hard to get out of my head.
No,
but
it
I
is,
did get
but-
used to it.
But when you rewatch it, then it's not as jarring because you've already seen it. So once I rewatched
Then
it,
I mean, then I got to rewatch it. I mean, I
Yeah.
would have rewatched it before the chat, but I saw it like literally 2 days ago.
Yeah.
So
No,
it
yeah,
would
it's
feel
fine.
way too early. It would feel
Speaking-
way
No, I
too
get
early.
it.
On the topic of performances, I think the guy who played Mikey kind of knocked it out of the park because
He
there's that one
did.
scene at the end where Violet kisses him and then like he's like completely fucking like whoa, and then you
is
can see him
hilarious.
lean,
That was hilarious.
you can see him slightly lean in, you can see him like lean in for another one, but he's like no. And then it was like oh man,
I didn't notice
thought
that.
was-
I'm gonna watch.
yeah,
I didn't notice
does
that.
it
I'm
like
gonna watch for that on my second
he does
watch.
it really he does it like really subtle. He's just
Yeah,
he tried
I
and then
remember
he
that.
like leans back and he's just so like he's so fucking blown away.
Yeah.
And
Really
it's just
brilliant.
Even all
and
the
it was just like
small
wow.
characters give such a good performance.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think everyone casted so well, even like just these small roles.
Oh yeah,
Memorable.
Christopher Maloney. I love Christopher Maloney. Like every time he shows up in a movie,
Who
and
was
he's
he?
just beating the shit. He was the guy who beat the shit out of the other
He
dude
was-
on the
Oh,
train.
right.
he was,
Johnny.
he played Johnny.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
The
was
guy who
Johnny.
Pantaleano fucking blasted.
Yep.
Yeah, that was the
So many
scene.
ways to beat. I
Xander.
can't make that joke 2 VCs in a row. Sorry. What?
No, that was the scene that like kind of took me out of the movie. Just the way that the sound design was implemented into the scene where he
Oh,
like
yeah,
got
that-
shot and like
Mm.
Johnny was like, I don't remember what Johnny said. I thought he was just like, I don't feel so
Don't
good or
sh- no,
something.
he said
like
don't
that.
shoot. He said don't shoot.
Yeah.
That was cheesy.
reminded-
I legit laugh.
That reminded me of Funny Games. Like it's like he shoots the dude and then he says, "Look out!" Like afterwards. Like,
Oh man, that moment was cheesy. That entire sequence, while tense, I got to admit, the build up to the shooting was genuinely tense. I texted you guys the entire time. I was like, "Holy fuck, I'm fucking locked in." Like that
Yeah.
build up when he's like, "Vi, get me another drink." Like that
Yeah.
moment was just so intense.
It is.
But then
It's
when
so
the payoff just felt a little nerfed because of just a few editing choices. It was just a little nerfed.
I don't agree with the whole like some of the cheesiness rooting it because I was still able to find it tense and goofy at the same time.
same, dude. Exactly.
Like this,
I know, I
this-
get that. I just the
They're still
goofiness was a little
intense,
much.
They're also
Yeah.
entertaining at the same time. I think both
Yeah.
tones work together.
They
I
were
mean, I
together.
never said that it wasn't entertaining. Like I said, the payoff was great. I still loved the shootout. It was just, I mean, I didn't. I was laughing. Like it was
Yeah.
clearly not a moment where I should have been laughing.
But I don't.
That's my
don't know about
issue with it.
because
I
it's
guess.
serious, but it is cheesy at the same time, and
Yeah.
they are aware of that. And they talked about. I watched the commentary when I rewatched it, and they talked about how these little aspects they just threw in for the fun of it. Like they
Yeah.
knew what they were doing.
oh yeah, you can tell
That
that
reminds me of, like, Dawn
they
of
were
the
having
Dead.
a lot of fun. You could tell they had a blast making this film. Absolutely.
It's
I agree with that. My thing with the directors saying that they meant for this to be cheesy or you're not supposed to take this seriously it just reminds me of The Guest. And with that movie,
Oh,
it's
not
clear that Adam Wingard and the writer,
I
like
was-
they did say that there are moments in that movie that you're not supposed to take seriously or are meant for comedy. When they're moments like some of the moments they name are like genuinely brutal and kind of like harsh moments that don't have any semblance of trying to be comedic in any way. And I kind of feel the same way for Bound, because the ending to the payoff to that shootout is clearly a moment where I'm supposed to take it seriously.
Yeah,
But I didn't feel that because I was just too busy laughing at like just a couple of choices that just bugged me. But at the same time, I still found it entertaining.
I think it
Like
Yes.
I'm not comparing this movie to The Guest, all right? Do not get me wrong. The Guest is a really fucking bad movie. This movie's great. But like I genuinely like saying that the director's meant to do it, but the execution doesn't reflect that. That's an example of where that's prominent. If a director says that they meant to do this, but the execution doesn't reflect that, then it's hard for me to then it's harder for me to get into the film.
I think it
So
all.
again, I think it's all personal preference. It's like
It is.
what do you want out of this payoff? Like, do you want something goofy? Do you want something serious? I was expecting something a little more like I was expecting like if if there was no music in that scene, I would actually be more inclined to believe you guys. But since the music was clearly was clearly like showing that you were kind of supposed to take this part seriously, I was more taken out of it because I was like, well, it's clearly not a serious
don't-
moment. He said don't shoot after being shot like 3 times. Like, really?
I don't think they're like going into it wanting the view. I think it depends on the person how they react to it. Because y'all were talking about the toilet scene where they're beating up the dude.
Yeah.
like, I think that part is, it's like it's so fucked up and disturbing because they're like
Actually-
really going at it. But the
Yeah.
director talking about it, they think that scene's comical. So
No.
Yeah, that's
Actually, I
weird.
think no. I think that part actually is a moment where it actually works because there's no music in that scene, and it's just the sound effects and like the zooming out of the toilet and like the beating and shit. That's a moment where I actually noticed it work. That moment was genuinely pretty great.
It's like a shift. It's like a shift in tone. Like that's the moment where I was like, yeah, this is. If the whole movie was like that and it just shifted to like that sort of style, I guess it would have worked better for me. Like no music and just like
Yeah.
fucked up shit.
Or at least no music where it's like no like music where it's like like twist
Yeah.
music. You know what I mean? Like, whoa, isn't that such a surprise music? Like that's the kind of music that was going on in the payoff, and that's what bugged me. If there was that music in the toilet scene, then I'd have the same complaint. Yes, it's well filmed, and yes, the moment is effective, but the effect itself is nerfed because of the music choice.
I have one question I want to ask you guys about the ending of the film, because I did not expect it to be sort of like an Indiana Jones like right off into the sunset kind of ending in like in their hot in like their nice car. But I kind of loved it. I was like, this is so cheesy, but it's all like this. I'm like, this is just a blast, man.
It was a fine ending. It was perfectly serviceable. I have nothing to say about it. I legitimately have nothing to say about it, except the song that they chose at the end of the credits, at the end credits, reminded me of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. That was the only part. That's all I can say about it.
I also have a question for Vinny, because when you were talking about the film, you said it kind of is like a blend of a bunch of different like genres in one, like you were saying, like mob, heist, romance. But honestly, I didn't really think it was. I guess there's aspects of all those, but it never felt like super clashing. And like 1 second it's a mob movie, 1 second it all fit. You know what I mean? It didn't. I just wanted to know what you meant by that, because I don't know if
I would say it's better when it's better than most movies that try to do like that sharp genre bending, but at the same time, like in terms of like you can have conflating tones and like a lot of different like genres playing together, but when it literally feels like flipping a switch, I think it takes away the intended effect. And I'm not saying this movie does that. It is definitely gradual. I think it's a gradual buildup, because the movie definitely starts off as like a noirish story, essentially, and then it delves more into the Italian mob stuff, and then there's like the whole heist stuff as it goes along. And I just
Yeah.
think I don't think it's bad. I just think it could have been done better, basically.
I see. I know what you mean now. That makes
Yeah.
sense. I do agree that it does. Now that you're saying that, I can see that how it does like change genres.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Occasionally.
It's just like
I
think it's
I love that though, but yeah, I think it worked well. But,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think it all.
I don't think I don't think it was poorly put together in terms of that. I just think maybe it's the fact that it kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say it like it loses its voice, but it wears the inspiration on its sleeve for these genres like really passionately, and I think that kind of deferred the movie from like kind of being its own thing, if that makes sense.
Being an homage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's very
Which
much
actually kind
it's
of
very
took
much
away
paying
from it
homage to that.
in some moments.
It
I think
kind of
it's
leaned
just
into those tropes too heavily a bit. Just sometimes where.
I hate to keep drawing comparisons to the Matrix, but it's just
Don't.
when you look at the Matrix, and the Matrix has a lot of like genre homages along with it too. There's a lot of noir influence, there's a lot of sci-fi in there. But I just think that I don't know, no, because the Matrix is just its own thing. The Matrix is so unique and creative, and like it changed like cinema basically, just with how it portrayed its ideas. I'm
he's not
comparing
wrong.
I'm comparing
Matrix did
I'm
change
comparing a
with the
great
landscape.
movie to I'm comparing a great movie to a slightly better movie. Maybe if Bound was bigger, more people would have, taken influence from that and like done these weird genre benders with like this cool
Actually,
Bill Pope cinematography.
That's a good point. That's a genuinely good point, because there's a lot of stuff in here that I've sort of seen taken throughout the years, but like
I think it's
not
just
not at all in the same boat as the Matrix. That thing has been has had its tricks and ideas stolen from like the very beginning. Whereas I feel like Bound has only recently become a bit more of like a cult has gained more of a cult following. Only recently.
I would have preferred like an entire like renaissance of just like LGBT action movies, basically.
I think Bound deserves much more of a following than it actually has, because it feels like, I don't know, it feels like it like the whole like the walls and like with the telephone shit. I find that shit so inspirational, because it's like,
that is cool.
Yeah, it's goofy, but it's like it's innovative. No one really thought about that before Wachowski, and it's executed really well. I think it deserves. I mean, I haven't seen The Matrix in 10 years, but I think it deserves more of a following, than it has. It deserves more inspiration than The Matrix.
I agree. I think it deserves a bit more of a. I think it deserves a bit more of like a cult status.
Yeah, I think it deserves more than it has.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I'd say it deserves more than it has, but maybe not. I don't know if it deserves.
I don't think
more
it
than
deserves more than The Matrix.
I just have one question for you guys, for you, Xander. So,
all right,
in that scene you were talking about with I think his name's Caesar, the mob dude, when he
oh, this moment, yeah,
because you went off on me and I was like, I just didn't remember.
Hold on. I didn't go off on you. I went off on the scene. All right, I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to like
an idiot, but okay.
No, I no, because you were. Yes, I did. Because you were implying something that I obviously was not implying, and I didn't want to be branded as like that kind of guy that you were saying I was. The moment where Caesar is trying to like call the number, because after he broke in and saw Violet calling that number. Here we are. I'm at the conversation. So
I said you're overanalyzing this, but
yeah. You see that I don't get, because I like overanalyzing. So when he calls her, she answers the phone. All right, hangs up. Walks away as it's ringing, and she knows that the walls are thin and he's literally right there. She knows this stuff, but she continues to walk away, and only a second later does she finally realize that, oh shit, he can hear me if I didn't already know that, and pulls the telephone wire out of the wall, disconnecting it. But here's the thing. She knew that the walls were thin, and she knew he was right there, because that's why she answered so quickly. Why did she back away Like that
Okay,
that
I know
moment
what
is
you mean.
yeah, that moment just really distracted me because they built her up as a really smart character, and
Yeah.
then he calls her, but she's walking away from the phone. Like
Okay, you know
really?
what? That is a valid complaint. I
Yeah,
agree with that.
yeah,
I didn't know
like
what you were.
the character. Sorry,
I
I knew that like there was a miscommunication because you said that you like
yeah
hadn't seen you needed to rewatch the movie. So I
yeah
was gonna address it in this chat. That was literally what I was about to talk about when you said you had a question for me. I was gonna address that you and I kind of had a bit of an argument about it, but
yeah. I
I
was just
knew it was like a
wondering.
miscommunication thing. No worries, man. But like, just the moment that they built her up as a really smart character, so that moment just really stuck out to me because it's like, how the fuck would you make that dumb of a mistake? He knew that he could
Y-
hear her, and I
Yeah,
would have
you're
like
right.
if I were in that position, I would have pulled the telephone out of the wall the second that she did, the second that she hung up hung up the phone the first time. I would have pulled it right out
Yep.
of the wall. That was just a
Yep.
gut reaction based on how I would act in that scenario. But
True.
she just walks away and then runs and
Yeah,
then
and then
pulls it out at that point. That was
yeah.
just really fucking distracting.
That you know
And
what? I completely understand that. That makes sense.
and
That's
what set me off is when you guys said that I wanted things to just go according to plan. Fuck, that's
I didn't say
obviously
that,
not
but
what you did. You said, "I'm sorry, I just
did
don't
I?
agree that everything goes according to plan."
Did I say that? I thought
You
that Grub
did.
said that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Grub
oops.
said
Well,
it too. And it's like I don't want everything to go according to plan. If it does, there wouldn't be a movie. But like if it's a moment, if everything screws up because of one dumb fucking mistake that contradicts a character, then I have an issue. That's where I have my issue.
Yeah, with what Xander said as well. I like a lot of people have that in terms of how like scripts are written, where like something happens that kind of initiates an entire like new sequence of events
Mhm.
for a film. Everybody obviously goes, well, then obviously the rest of the movie wouldn't happen. But I'm like, it's the writer's job to like go back and like retool it so that it
Yeah,
actively happens in a
makes
terms
sense.
of like natural cause and effect and like make sense within the context of the characters. And like if they don't do that, then that's like a pretty obvious writing flaw.
I think that, it was just a convenient moment to get the third act or get to get the climax started. And that bugged me because everything up until then was pretty solid. Like I genuinely like am pretty good at I'm usually pretty decent at spotting plot conveniences like that. And I was pretty like surprised that everything was pretty rock solid. But then that moment just was such a huge kick, like where I was like, "Whoa, wait, what?" That was just my
Hold up.
issue. Okay, so let's start. Grub, what are your closing thoughts on Bound?
It's a fucking masterpiece. It's genius.
All right.
Some of the most fun ever.
Okay, Coolio. What would you rate it?
10, easily.
10 out of 10. Okay,
Ace.
cool. Mr. Jakob, what would you give
Yes.
Bound?
Yeah, I gave it an 8 on first watch, and now I'm on rewatch. I upped it to a 9 because this is one of the only movies that I've seen where I have like quite a few complaints, but it was just so much fun, and I just loved so much of the other stuff about it that it's going on my favorites too. I absolutely love it, so I'm gonna give it a 9.
Yes. Let's go!
Okay, that's fair. Jack, what would you give Bound?
I'm giving it a 7, and I'm gonna rewatch it soon. And I
Okay.
don't know if it's gonna go up or down this VC.
All
I
right.
thought it was gonna go up before this VC, but I don't know. It might go down after I rewatch.
What?
I don't know.
I guess we'll see. Seth, what would you give Bound?
Fucking loved Bound. It was like, oh man, I don't even know. It was insane. I don't know. It was like it was just a blast, and it felt self-aware. I don't know. It felt really tight. It was cohesive. It was everything. I'm gonna give it a 9.
Alrighty, Coolio.
Around 9.
Ron.
I thought it was good. It's not something that impacted me that much though. I'm probably not gonna think about it anymore, but I'll rewatch it at some point. I'm glad you guys took so much out of it though, like seeing all these new perspectives and stuff. But I'm still going with my strong 6. It's good.
All right.
Okay. That's fair.
Bob.
I think it's like an incredibly well shot, acted, stylish film very thrilling as well. It has like amazing character writing, and the like relationship between the two main characters is like incredible to watch. And yeah, that's about it. Like, I think it's an amazing movie, and I'll give it like a high 8.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah,
Let's
high
go.
eight, Bob.
All right. My closing thoughts on Bound. It's really fun. It is the definition of a perfectly fun movie. There's nothing wrong with wrong with having criticisms against it. I think that each side has fair points. I can see where Grub and Jacob and Seth are coming from with the whole like cheesiness not bothering them and how it feels purposeful. I understand that, seriously, wholeheartedly. I 100% understand where you're coming from, even if I don't personally see entirely like those moments in the way that you do. I see some of them as more distracting, but I mean, I understand why you don't, and that. I'm glad you guys were able to get more out of it, more out of those scenes than I was. But overall, despite my complaints, I still think this movie is pretty great. Even as a debut, it's pretty impressive. It's pretty hard to make such an impressive debut. It's very entertaining characters. Joe Pantoliano really kills it. Very incredibly well shot, very stylistic. I will absolutely watch this again, and I think I'm gonna go with a solid 7 out of 10.
Oh
Vinny.
God. Yeah, I really love this movie for the most part. I think it's got a lot of style, and I think what makes it stand out specifically is that style. I think it's got a lot of really well put together shots and the interesting ideas surrounding it, including how it bends genres and like the things that it tries to say in terms of its themes are really good. I just think that they could have been executed altogether a little bit better. So I initially gave it a strong 7 to light 8, but upon going through this and actually like hearing especially what Xander said about the telephone, that's like actually a pretty like there's a pretty big convenience, and it kind of affected my rating. So I think I'm going light to decent 7 now.
All right.
Okay.
So before we leave, we have to do the
Aaron.
next rec, announce it, and it's gonna be my turn. The film I recommended was a film by Peter Greenaway, made in
Yeah.
1989. It's called The Cook, the Thief, His Wife, and Her Lover.
Shit!
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Looks fucking
Ooh.
Gino.
So
I'm excited.
watch it before the next VC, so you won't have to get spoiled.
Indeed, we'll be talking about it. We'll be talking about it within the next week or maybe 2. Who knows?
Yes, hopefully. Yes. All right, so thanks for watching, everybody. Stay tuned for the next episode. Goodbye.
Yes, sir. Goodbye,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye
Have a great day.